Hi, the development theory that I am going to share to you in today's discussion is my favorite among the development theories included in this course. It was introduced by Erikson and he termed it Psychosocial Development Theory. It's my favorite class because aside from the idea that it covers the entire lifespan of a human being, it also shows how an individual deals with different battles within himself as he continues to progress in the society. It's meaningful for me, especially when it tries to give possible effects of man's choices in life. The theory of Erikson was largely influenced by Simon Freud. Erikson just added the cultural and social aspects in his theory. Now, the term psychosocial is derived from two source words, namely psychological and social. That's why we have psycho and social. Psycho pertains to our mind, brain, personality, behavior, etc. While on the other hand, social pertains to our external relationships or our environment in general. The theory of Erikson is a basis for broad or complex discussion and analysis of personality and behavior, and also for understanding and for facilitating personal development. Moreover, Erikson followed the epigenetic principle in his theory. As defined, this principle says that we develop through a predetermined unfolding of our personalities in each stages. Our progress through each stage is in part determined by our success or lack of success in all the previous stages. Ibig sabihin, class, earlier stages served as a foundation for the later stages. If we are successful in the previous stages, then basically it would have a positive effect on the later stages. However, if we are not, then it would have a negative effect on the later stages. With this class, our development is compared to the unfolding of a rosebud. Each petal opens up at a certain time in a certain order which nature, through its genetics, has determined. If we interfere in the natural order of development by pulling a petal forward prematurely or out of order, we ruin the development of the entire flower. Masisira, class, yung beauty ng flower. Parang ganyan yung development natin. If we are forced to do something which is not appropriate in our level, it would have a negative effect on the development of our personality in general. Lalong-lalo na nga sinabi pa nga ni Erikson, in-emphasize niya, our earlier experiences gradually build upon the next and result into our personality. Now, each stage involves a psychosocial crisis of two opposing emotional forces. A helpful term used by Erikson for these opposing forces is contrary dispositions. Each crisis stage relates to a corresponding life stage and its inherent challenges. Erikson used the words syntonic for the first listed positive disposition in each crisis and dystonic for the second listed negative disposition. To signify the opposing or conflicting relationship between each pair of forces or dispositions, Erikson connected them with the word versus. Now, the goal class of each psychosocial crisis is establish a healthy ratio or a balance between the two opposing dispositions that represent each crisis. Of course, class, it is harmful to have too much positive or too much syntonic, and it is also bad to have too much negative or too much dystonic. Remember nga yung sabi nila, lahat ng sobra ay nakakasama. Now, if we don't do so well, we may develop maladaptations and malignancies, as well as endanger all of our future development. A malignancy class is the worst of the two. It involves too little of the positive and too much of the negative aspect of the task, such as a person who can't trust others. A maladaptation is not quite as bad and involves too much of the positive positive and too little of the negative, such as a person who trusts so much. Stage 1. Trust versus mistrust. The goal is to develop trust without completely eliminating the capacity for mistrust. If the primary caregivers, like the parents, can give the baby a sense of familiarity, consistency, and continuity, then the baby will develop trust. Remember, class, that a baby is totally dependent to the adults around him. He cannot provide his own needs. He does not even have a full control of his own body. Now, if his needs, class, are addressed by the people around him, if his needs in terms of biological, emotional, and psychological are responded to, then basically he would have an idea that the people around him are reliable, that the people are trustworthy, and of course, he would have this feeling that the world or the environment specifically that he is currently in is a safe place to live in. Now, if his needs are rejected, if parents become negligent of the infant, then basically the child would be anxious most of the time. The child would become suspicious around people. That's why, class, ang manifestations na nade-develop yung mistrust ng bata is yung iyak ng iyak, restless yung bata, no? So, always natatakot sa tao. So, yun yung mga indications. Of course, not all parents are perfect. In fact, lahat ng mga parents ay nagsimula sa isang experiment. With this, as much as the needs of the child are needed to be satisfied, it is not good for a parent to become overprotective of the child to the point na sa unang iyak pa lang, nandoon na siya kaagad para damayan yung bata. According to Erikson, this can lead to a maladaptive tendency called sensory maladjustment. No? So, sensory maladjustment, class, is manifested when the child becomes overly trusting and even gullible. Ang daling lokohin, ang daling utuin, ang daling papaniwalain. That child, class, cannot believe that other people are capable of doing bad things. Sometimes, no, itong batang ito, kahit ilang beses nang niloko, nagtitiwala pa rin. No? Now, on the other hand, class, if the child naman would have too much mistrust, this could lead to a malignant tendency called withdrawal. So, ang withdrawal, class, is characterized by depression, paranoia, and possibly psychosis. Yung always natakot yung bata, class, sa tao. Always na napaparanoid. Always nag-iisip ng negative, no? By the way, class, malignancy and maladaptation are not directly observed sa bata. In fact, ito ay na-observe natin sa later stages na ng development. Hindi siya agad-agad nakikita, no? Kaya nga, according to Erikson, mas nakakatakot kasi mas makikita mo na yung resulta ng previous stages doon na sa later stages, and it's possible na baka too late na masolusyonan. That's why, ang sabi ni Erikson, habang bata pa, kailangan ayusin na yung pagkikare or yung pagga-guide natin sa bata mismo. If the proper balance is achieved in stage 1, the child will develop the virtue of hope, the strong belief that even when things are not going well now, they will work out well in the end. One of the signs that a child is doing well in the first stage is when the child isn't overly upset by the need to wait a moment for the satisfaction of his needs. Ibig sabihin nito, class, unti-unti nang nade-develop yung patience within the child. Naiintindihan niya na baka may kailangan pang gawin yung parents niya, kaya kailangan niya munang maghintay sandali. Now, according to Erikson, the first stage is very crucial and important because the first stage is the foundation of all other stages. With this, hope also is very important. That's why the child must develop a strong sense of hope. Hope is needed all throughout the development of the child. As quoted by Erikson, hope is both the earliest and the most indispensable virtue inherent in the state of being alive. If life is to be sustained, hope must remain, even where confidence is wounded, trust impaired. Stage 2. Autonomy versus shame and doubt. In this stage, the child is learning how to take full control of his own body. The child begins to do things alone. The child begins to walk, run, climb, and perform other tasks that require him to apply gross motor skills specifically. He tries to explore his environment in any way possible. He's very energetic, curious, and restless. He tries to manipulate things, no? According to Erikson, this is a sign of the development of autonomy or independence. According to him, parents should neither discourage nor push the child. There should always be a balance. However, according to Erikson, it is important that parents should let their child do things alone for himself. In this way, self-control and self-esteem can be developed. It is not good class na sa lahat ng pagkakataon ay yung parents yung gumagawa ng mga bagay-bagay para sa baby nila, no? It's good that they respond to the needs of the child, but yung mga kakaunting bagay, say for example, yung pagkain, no? So as early as toddlers, kailangan matututo na yung bata. Because if the parents won't give the child the chance to learn how to do things his way, then basically the child would have this idea na hindi na lang siya matututo because anyway, nandiyan naman yung parents niya all the time to do things for him. So at the end of the day, class, the potentials of the child remain undeveloped, no? So, hindi na siya ma-improve because the parents, no, already prevent it from its unfolding. Now, of course, the child would also try to question his or her own abilities. Sasabihin niya sa sarili niya na hindi niya kaya all the time, no? So, at the end of the day, hindi niya malalaman kung ano yung mga bagay that he is capable of, no? Hindi siya mag-improve if parents won't let him improve alone. As written here, class, when you cut it for me, write it for me, open it for me, set it up for me, draw it for me, or find it for me, all I learn is that you do it better than me. Although negative, it is also good that the child possesses a little shame and doubt, because without it, the child will have the maladaptive tendency called impulsiveness. This is a sort of shameless willfulness that leads him in the later childhood and even adulthood to jump into things without proper consideration of his abilities. However, if there is too much shame and doubt, it would result to a malignancy called compulsiveness. A compulsive person, class, feels as if his entire being rides on everything he does, and so everything must be done perfectly. Following the rules is everything. This person class does not allow mistakes. Mistakes must be avoided at all costs. But remember class, we need mistake in order for us to grow. We need mistake in order for us to learn and become mature. That's why class, as future teachers and parents, you need to be patient and tolerant of your future children. Remember class, sa pagkakamali sila natututo. It is also important na kapag nagkamali sila, you need to correct it in a gentle way. If there is a balance between autonomy and shame and doubt, the child will develop the virtue of willpower or determination. This makes the child class to not easily give up on things that he wants to do at the end of the day. Na kahit na-frustrate na siya dahil sa paulit-ulit na pagkakamali, it doesn't mean natitigil na siya. No? He would always have the willpower to continue until he does the task satisfactorily. Page 3. Initiative versus guilt. Obviously, the task is to learn initiative without too much guilt. Initiative means a positive response to the world's challenges, taking on responsibilities, learning new skills, feeling purposeful. Parents can encourage initiative by encouraging children to try out their ideas. It means putting their ideas into action. Parents should accept and encourage fantasy and curiosity and imagination. Parents should support the little experiments of their children so long as that it won't harm them. Remember class that early childhood is a time for playing and not formal education. So, children should not be contained in one corner, but should be given an opportunity to play outside and try to make their imagination and their non-reality a reality. This is what initiative means. On the other hand, class, the child begins to feel guilt na din. No? The child now understands that if he does something bad, his parents would be mad. No? Kapag for example, nabasag niya ang baso, of course, magkakaroon na siya ng idea na pagagalitan siya ng parents niya. No? So that feeling class is called guilt. Too much initiative and too little guilt means a maladaptive tendency Erikson calls ruthlessness. To be ruthless is to be heartless or unfeeling or be without mercy. The ruthless person class takes the initiative alright. In fact, umaapaw at sumusobra talaga sila sa initiative, no? They have their plans, whether it's a matter of school, or romance, or politics, or career. The problem is, they don't care who they step on so long as they achieve their goal at the end of the day. Goals are the only things that matter to them, class. And guilty feelings and mercy are only signs of weakness. We need to be careful because if ruthlessness is put to extremity, it would lead to a condition called sociopathy. I guess class you have watched movies starring sociopathic characters. Nakakatakot because a sociopath is not capable of feeling guilt na. Not capable of feeling sorry to those people that he has done wrong. No? On the other hand, as much as being ruthless is bad for others, but according to Erikson, it's relatively easy to deal with a ruthless person than to deal with a person who has a malignant tendency called inhibition. The inhibited person class will not try things because yung motto nila is nothing ventured, nothing lost, and particularly nothing to feel guilty about. They are so afraid to try new things. So afraid na magbigay ng opinions, magbigay ng suggestions, i-voice out yung ideas nila, no? They are so afraid to take the lead because, no, natatakot sila doon sa idea na if it would fail, then sila yung mabiblame. So mas mabuti na hindi sila sumubok, manahimik na lang sila para hindi sila masisi at the end of the day. No? Anyway, class, if a good balance is achieved in this stage, it would lead to a psychosocial strength called purpose. No? Purpose, class, is something that we crave for. Right? Now, if we have initiative with a little guilt, then basically, class, we have the courage to continue amidst challenges, amidst difficulties, no? Even amidst our own limitations. Kahit na meron tayong mga past failings, no? Mga misgivings, mga pagkakamali, but still, we are still willing to continue. We are willing to not give up because we already have this sense of purpose. Stage 4. Industry versus inferiority. In this stage, children are in elementary. From the comfort and familiarity provided by their family and neighborhood, they are brought out to a whole new environment. Wider environment even. No? So this is the school where new people like their classmates and teachers are present. Going to school, class, and attaining education is necessary for them to learn the basic skills, knowledge, and values. They need to learn how to socialize with different people to respond to their society's expectations of them. Now, they need encouragement, class, both from their parents and teachers so that they would feel motivated in school. If this is done, then basically they would feel supported and guided in this new environment. So as a result, they would eventually learn these expected skills, knowledge, and values. However, if parents, teachers, and peers come harsh in giving criticisms, so children would likely develop inferiority or incompetence instead of industry or competence. So, hindi dapat, class, always pagagalitan yung bata, ibubuli, or yung feeling niya, class, na i-discriminate because instead of feeling proactive in the pursuit of his education, ang mangyayari, class, is madi-discourage yung bata. No? However, too much industry leads to the maladaptive tendency called neurovirtuosity. This is manifested, class, by children who are not allowed to be children because their parents and teachers push them into one area of competence. So they do not have time to enjoy, they don't have time to experience the things that children should experience to begin with because they are so busy excelling. They are so busy becoming expert, no, shining in that chosen field. So example nito, class, is yung mga child actors, mga child athletes, child musicians, child prodigies of all sorts. So as much as we admire their industry, their young enthusiasm, class, but if we look at a little closer, it's all that stands in the way of an empty life. Ang sabi pa nga, class, doon sa rhyme natin ng elementary, studying without playing would make Jack a dull boy. Kahit na laro-laro lang yan, class, but remember, there is also wisdom that only playing can offer. No matter how hard you study, you cannot understand that wisdom because it is only experience when you are playing. On the other hand, class, worse ang malignancy called inertia. So this includes all of us who suffer from the inferiority complexes, according pa nga kang Alfred Adler. So many of us, for example, didn't do well in mathematics. So we die before we took another math class. No? So nandoon na yung fear natin always. Nakikita pa lang natin yung mathematics teacher natin. Parang ayaw na nating pumasok. Or for example, napahiya ka sa public speaking class mo, no? Napahiya ka doon sa oral recitation ninyo. So instead of giving it a try again, ang mangyayari class, nagiging inert ka na, no? So nagkakaroon ka ng feeling na hindi lang yung tao yung nadidisappoint mo. Nadidisappoint ka na rin sa sarili mo, no? So you become inert. You don't want to go out in public because yun na nga, you are disappointed with your own potentials. No? You are disappointed with your own abilities. You are questioning your capabilities as a person. A more beautiful class if we achieve a balance in this stage. Ibig sabihin, there is a right amount of industry with the mixture of inferiority. As a result, of course, it would lead to a virtue called competency. Competency is healthier if you don't only compete with other people, but most importantly, you compete with your past performance. Ibig sabihin, class, you have this goal na kung ito yung performance mo ngayon, dapat kinabukasan better yung performance mo. Dapat mas maganda yung result. So, mas healthy yung ganyan na competency class. Stage 5. Identity versus role confusion. After elementary years, here we go with high school years. And according to many class, high school is the most unforgettable of all the stages of man's life. High school is highlighted by puberty. I know that all of you experience puberty, class. Puberty is determined by many biological changes in our bodies, which also affect other aspects of our development, such as social, emotional, cognitive, psychological, etc. With this, in our case, we became very conscious of our bodies. We started becoming more aware of our thoughts, emotions, and feelings. This is in fact a new experience to all adolescents, and that is why during puberty, we were also on the process of getting used to this new experience. This is difficult. That is why we often had lot of mood swings during puberty class. We often had the tendency to be so confused of the things that we want. It was as if we don't know ourselves anymore. We can't understand ourselves anymore. In line with this, we badly wanted comfort from the people around us. We want people to console us, to comfort us. That is why we had the strong urgency to belong to a particular group who understand our struggles, specifically class our peers. That is why we were also stimulated to paint our identity, our self-image in response to this need to belong. For example, some struggle to join the honor rolls to have this intelligent and competitive identity. Some also prefer to be part of music, dance, and arts organization to have this artistic vibe. This is made possible, class, with the help of identifying our strengths and weaknesses. Of course, you won't get into a group that does not get your interests, no? So, the group most likely that you want to be part of has something that is common to you, right? To be part of the group, remember, is to have a chance to feel the sense of belongingness. However, this is going to be difficult if you don't know what you can do, if you don't know what your capabilities are. Because if you don't know about these things, no, you won't have any idea also as to what group you want to be part of. This is a manifestation of identity crisis or identity confusion. Moreover, in the painting of our identity, the people around us play a big role. In fact, in many cases, we adjust our identity based on what society expects of us. Our roles change from time to time based on the appropriateness of the situation. For instance, at home, you are the son or daughter of your parents, the brother or the sister of your siblings. At school, you are the diligent student, ipagpalagay natin. With friends, you are the joker type, etc., etc. So, this is understandable, class, because, of course, we consider other people as they also consider us. So, para tayong nagsusuot ng napakaraming maskara base sa situation na meron tayo. However, being too consumed in a particular role to the point that you can no longer perform other roles and adjust will lead to a maladaptive tendency called fanaticism. A fanatic believes that his way is the only way. Remember also, class, that adolescents are also known for idealism. This is the tendency to see things in black and white. If this is the case, then you are not willing to be open for others' belief, for all you can see is yours. You are so in love of your image, you refuse to see other people. Now, on the other hand, the lack of identity is more difficult where the malignant tendency called repudiation is determined. To repudiate is to reject. Ibig sabihin, class, you reject the membership of the world of adults. You don't want to belong to any group, even if you were invited to join. Because of this, some engage in destructive activities like taking drugs, drinking alcohol, or joining a gang that has bad practices because, after all, being bad is better than being nobody. Now, if you successfully negotiate this stage, you will have the virtue called fidelity that is described by our establishing of identity with a hint of role confusion. Yes, class, although negative, identity confusion or role confusion is still important because if we are confused, we have questions. And if we have questions, most likely we seek for answers. In seeking answers, we gain knowledge and wisdom. By this, we can continue to grow and develop as a human being. Anyway, class, fidelity means loyalty. This is the ability to live by the society's standards despite imperfections, incompleteness, and inconsistencies. It means that you are still willing to be part of a society, of a group, because you recognize that you can contribute to limit these imperfections. You also recognize that the society, in return, can also help you grow as a person. It means, class, that you realize that there is something that you can do. Those things that we explained and mentioned, class, signify the importance of having a sense of identity. As quoted by Erikson, in the social jungle of human existence, there is no feeling of being alive without a sense of identity. Without a sense of identity, class, it means that we're just merely existing, like how grass exists, like how animals exist. No? It means that we don't have any reason to live for, don't have any purpose. No? Another quote by Erikson, the more you know yourself, the more patience you have for what you see in others. This is very important, class, especially that you are going to become future teachers. And as future teachers, you are going to contribute to your learners' self-actualization. Now, iba kasi, class, pag meron kang strong sense of identity, it means that you can understand people better. It means that you can empathize with them. And to empathize, class, means to put yourself in the situation of other people. Stage 6. Intimacy versus isolation. Intimacy is the ability to be close to others as a lover, a friend, and a participant in the society. Because we now have a sense of identity or a sense of self, we tend to share it with other people without the fear of losing it. Because of this class, relationships in this stage are deeper and long lasting compared to what we usually had in high school and elementary. Of course, I am not only talking about romantic relationship, but also relationship with family and friends. However, in line with the relationship class, we also have this fear of commitment. We are afraid that even though we have our sense of identity, but if we commit ourselves to a relationship, we might not able to perform the counter responsibilities. That is why we have this tendency to isolate ourselves from other people. On the other hand, having too many relationships or having the tendency to become intimate too freely, too easily, and without any depth to the intimacy is a sign of maladaptive tendency called promiscuity. You know a lot of people, yes. You are close to them, yes. But if we try to examine the quality of your bond, there is only less or maybe none. Because remember, class, committing yourself to a relationship takes knowing that person or people you are having relationship with and they doing the same thing to you. Sharing one another's secrets, interests, opinions, thoughts, etc. If you don't know anything about that person, then we cannot say that there is really a relationship. In the opposite side class, the malignancy exclusion refers to the tendency to isolate oneself from love, friendship, and community, and to develop a certain hatefulness in compensation for one's loneliness. Now, if we are successful in this stage, we will attain the psychosocial strength called love. Love in this context class means putting differences aside by means of mutuality of devotion. It means that you accept the imperfections of someone because he or she also accepts yours. Love here does not only mean the one that we find in marriage, but also from friends, family, colleagues, and other people. Page 7. Generativity versus stagnation. Generativity is an extension of love into the future. It is the concern for the next generation and all future generations. This kind of love is less selfish than the intimacy of the previous stage. Because in intimacy class, which could be a love between lovers or friends, love is between equals and is necessarily mutual. However, in generativity, the individual, like a parent, does not expect to be repaid for the love he gives to his children. At least not as strongly and not all, no? So for those parents class who expect a return on their investment from the children, we don't think of them as very good parents, right? Speaking of generativity, in similar manner class, a professional who does his best in his career and contribute in his field is also extending love towards the society because with good performance comes good service towards the people of the society. Our research, invention, discoveries, writings, teachings. These are manifestations of generativity, for it will benefit people of today and the next generation. However, people who don't care for the society and the future and only care for themselves are stagnant. Remember, we also see purpose of life class in people, but because of refusal to care for people, the chance to have a meaningful purpose is lost forever. Too much generativity without stagnation is not healthy. We also need to pause and relax. We also need time for ourselves. This is necessary for us to be able to work again because if we keep on exhausting ourselves without a rest, we might end up not having anything at all. This might lead us to a maladaptive tendency called overextension. A person who is so tired no longer contributes well. Remember that class? So in your case, if you think your parents are overextending, try to tell them they need to treat themselves also. Buy things for themselves or travel. No? Taking good care of ourselves is making more rooms for contributions. Let's not be harsh towards ourselves. Let's promote self-love and self-care. Now, the opposite is the malignant tendency called rejectivity, that is identified by too much stagnation and too little generativity. A person is no longer contributing in the society, no longer participating. Remember, class, we need also to do our responsibilities as part of the society who is given rights and privileges. Examples of stagnant people are those who quit on their jobs and refuse to perform his tasks as a parent. Aside from being a burden in their own families, they are also a burden in the society. Generativity versus stagnation. A proper balance is needed to attain the virtue, a capacity for caring that will serve us through the rest of our lives. This stage is the climax of our legacy for the future generation. Stage 8. Integrity versus despair. This stage is the retirement stage. By the way, the task is to develop ego integrity with a minimal amount of despair. According to Erikson, reaching this stage is a good thing, but this stage seems like the most difficult of all. First comes a detachment from society, from a sense of usefulness for most people in our culture. Because a person in this stage is somewhere around 60, most probably he does not have the energy to do the same things he did in his youth. In the case of our parents who are in this age, or grandparents, they have illnesses such as arthritis, diabetes, heart problems, asthma, etc. Most of all, because they are old, they also have this fear of death, especially if they also notice most people they know who are like them also died. They develop this despair, hopelessness. In response to this, they become preoccupied of the past where things were still better. Some are consumed on their past mistakes and failures, but only to think that they can no longer reverse it. They can no longer redeem themselves because they no longer have the energy and the time. This is what makes it so difficult. Ego integrity is about coming to terms with your life and thereby coming to terms with the end of life. It means you have accepted the life that you have had, including your failures, mistakes, and all the choices you made. It means you understand that even those misgivings and lapses you made contribute to your identity as a person. And without it means not having everything you have. Those things are also necessary. You have accepted it, and because of this, you should not fear the coming of your death. The maladaptive tendency in stage 8 is called presumption. This is what happens when a person presumes ego integrity without actually facing the difficulties of old age. The person in old age believes that he alone is right. He does not respect the ideas and views of the young. On the other hand, the malignant tendency is called disdain, by which Erikson means a contempt of life, one's own or anyone's. The person becomes very negative and appears to hate life. Now, someone who approaches death without fear has the strength Erikson calls wisdom. He calls it a gift to children because healthy children will not fear life if their elders have integrity enough not to fear death. He suggests that the person must be somewhat gifted to be truly wise.